So all of us want our people to be growing closer to Jesus. But the question is, are there any ways that we can actually track and see if our people are becoming more healthy? Well, today on Practical Church Planting, we're going to give you 6 signs of health in your church.
Welcome back to Practical Church Planting, where in 15 minutes or less, we'll give you practical tips, advice, and encouragement to help you plant and grow healthy churches. My name is Brian Androsian. Joining me, as always, is Dylan Dodson. And today, we're talking about the new background that we're in front of. Dylan,
right.
We changed scenery again.
We did. We're a church plant. We changed things around. A couple weeks ago, we put in a pallet wall. So if you're watching the video version, we're on our stage in front of our pallet wall.
Yeah, you wouldn't be able to tell, but we're actually up in the air right now. But in reality, today we're talking about 6 signs of health in your church.
So there are a number of things you can look at to see how your church is doing beyond just attendance, because honestly, the attendance may be somewhat helpful, but people don't go every week. And, just because it's growing, maybe a lot of people are leaving. So that doesn't be a good thing.
Yep.
So 6 other ways you can see how your church, particularly your people, is it healthy, or things going well, or there might be some issues.
Yeah.
So number 1, the first thing you can look at, well, not necessarily in order of importance, but this is a big one, is that people increasing their generosity. So this isn't just people giving. If you have people go to your church, they've probably been giving for a while. But if you want to see if people are actually growing, it's whether or not they're actually increasing in their generosity. Now, some of this has to do with leadership and how you talk about generosity. And I know there's debate about this, at New City, we do not teach the 10%.
Yeah.
It is our opinion, or maybe mine. That is not a New Testament command. So if that is what you say, you have to give 10%. I mean, most people don't even give 10%, but if they do, They're probably never going to grow. Mm-hmm. At New City, what we teach is that Jesus wants your heart, and he wants us to grow, like he wants us to grow in every area of our life, which so he wants us to grow generously in our generosity as well. And so one of the ways we can tell if people are doing that is if their giving is going up. Mm-hmm. Now, there could be a number of reasons why it's not. Maybe they lost a job, whatever. But there are times where I'll look at our giving. Maybe we should do an episode on that, why I actually encourage pastors to look at the people who give and how much they give. But when you see people increase their generosity, that's likely a good sign that they're taking extra steps of faith.
Yeah. With this point, and kind of with most of the points that we're going to talk about, one of the reasons I think that just measuring attendance is maybe not the best idea is because people can be coming, and new people can be coming, but if nobody's growing, then what are we doing? It's almost like, one of the things that we don't say is measuring salvations, because that kind of goes the same way. People can raise their hand if you do it that way or whatever and say they accepted Christ, but if they're never growing or if there's no next step, then we're not really doing our job as a church. So helping people increase their generosity, I think helps, looking at if people are increasing their generosity really helps you determine if your people are not just showing up, but are actually growing in their faith.
And again, if you do not check how people give, there's reasons why people don't. Again, we're going to do an episode on that. That's a good idea. Coming on the spot. Yep. But if this is a great thing to do. If you actually check their generosity, see if people are increasing their giving, and then you'll know that there's probably some good fruit going on there.
Yeah, for sure.
Number 2, and this somewhat has to do with whether or not this is a big deal in your church or not. But
it should be.
There you go. Is the percentage of people in your group, small groups, community groups, life groups, Bible studies, whatever you call it.
Yeah.
How many people are actually in your group? Now, the numbers will probably never be 100% in terms of like everyone that actually goes to your church, because people might have young kids, there's seasons, but generally speaking, if it's something that you value as a church, people ought to be a part of it. Mm-hmm. And so our people and part of, at New City, we think community is a big deal, so we talk about groups a lot. So if nobody was in groups, or if we had like only 1 or 2 groups given our size, that would be a problem.
Yeah.
And so if you don't do groups, maybe it's something else, but if you do groups, how many percentage of the people are actually in it will show you whether or not they're actually buying and growing in community the way that you want them to.
And this is a good thing to track over time too, because as you grow in attendance, if your groups stay flat, then obviously you're not assimilating new people, and you're just, the people that are in groups are sticking in their groups and not inviting people to it. So as you kind of measure how your church is growing, make sure to be measuring how your groups are growing as well.
Yep. So it's number 2, percentage of people in groups. Number 3, this is maybe one that people might not be thinking of, but it is a big factor in a lot of areas and a lot of reasons, I'll explain in a second, is the attitude / the involvement of your church staff. Now, if you're a brand new church plant, maybe you don't have staff, maybe you have a few, but what often happens is, churches staff Monday through Friday or whenever your work days are, they do their thing.
Yeah.
But is your staff actually active and engaged in the life of the church? Because if they're not, the likelihood of other people in your church not being engaged is probably high. So, for example, I know a lot of churches, maybe not a lot, it's not probably right word. I know of churches who groups are a big deal, but their staff is not really a part of groups. And then they also therefore have a very low percentage, or their pastor's not even in a group. So they have a low percentage of people in their groups.
Yeah.
They should not be surprised because the leadership of the church isn't involved in what they're doing. And so that could be in groups. That could be, does your staff give? Do they show up to events, and not just because they have to, but because they want to be around the people?
Right.
Are they actually involved? And do they have a good attitude towards what is going on in the church? Will really show whether or not your church is healthy, because again, if your leaders aren't into it, it's probably indicative of a bigger problem.
Yeah, that's good. Dylan, I'm church staff. How's my attitude?
Your attitude is great.
Oh, thank God.
No, we're really,
I don't know if this is like a passive-aggressive way to say you need to change something.
But even with that, like, we're really blessed,
Yeah.
because after we do events or whatever, like, the staff is often staying later to talk and hang out. And I think that's a good sign that not only does your staff like each other, because that's probably important, but they actually enjoy what they're doing. So there are many times where we're, before an event or after event, it's like there's no reason to still be there, and we're all still there.
Yeah.
So.
And this can be obviously I was joking, but this can be a kind of a weird line to toe sometimes, because obviously if you're a smaller church, once you get to be a much larger church, you don't really expect all staff members to do everything and things like that, obviously. But when you're smaller, it's kind of not expected, but it's kind of assumed that most staff would go to most things at least. And it can be kind of a weird line to toe, because obviously you don't want to burn people out. You don't want to make them be at every single thing. But so it's almost kind of like they don't have to be there, but they want to be there kind of thing, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, it's a big deal, because if your staff, and maybe this is another conversation we could have on another episode. We're just full of new episodes here.
Here we go.
Is if your staff is not excited about stuff that you're doing, your people probably aren't as well.
Yeah, for sure.
One of the things that we've adopted this year is that if we're not excited about an event or something that we're doing, we won't do it. If the staff, not because we've heard other people they want to do it, like if the staff are generally not excited about it, we won't do it. Because if we're not excited about it, it's hard for us to get other people involved in what we're doing.
Yeah. Yeah, that's good. I mean, and we've had things in the past, we can move on from this, but we've had things in the past years where when it comes to setting up for something or getting ready for whatever this thing is, after we kind of weren't excited about it anymore, it was kind of all the staff was just like, ugh. Like, right. I mean, it was just, you could feel we're just like drained from this thing. And it doesn't mean every single thing is going to be the most fun thing in the world. But yeah, I think it really shows if the people putting it on I shouldn't say care about, but aren't excited about it, no one else is going to be.
So the attitude in your staff is a big barometer of the health of your church. Number 4, are people inviting their friends? Now, if you have a larger church and more people, there's probably a better percentage of people coming.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't just say if they're showing up, but are they even talking about it? And, one of the reasons why this is something that I've thought more of this year, we're doing this thing called Just One, where we're encouraging all our people to invest and invite just one person this year. And if we all do that, we'll make a big impact. And so hearing more people talk about, even though the person maybe has not come yet, had multiple conversations with people telling me about the person that they are praying for, they're being intentional with, or they've tried to invite. And the more people that are doing that, the more likely people are taking steps of faith, and you're reaching more people because your own people are living on mission a little bit more.
Yeah, I think like you said, the easiest way to tell this is based on conversations that you have with people, because I mean, as we all know, you can invite someone forever and they never come. But and so just basing on if the people are walking through the door might be a little tough, but in your community groups and having your leaders kind of facilitate these kind of conversations of who are you pouring into, who are you inviting to church, then you can really see who is and who isn't. Not that, shame the people that aren't, but you can really tell if people are really bought into the church based on if they're inviting anybody.
And it can be hard because, at the end of the day, you can't force your people to invite.
Yeah.
And some of this take times, and of course you don't want to do anything gimmicky for them to want to invite.
Yeah.
But if people are bought into what they're doing and excited about what they're doing, they will likely be more invitational with their friends.
About it.
And I do want to encourage this. We're a little over 2 years in, and we have people now who are just starting to be more intentional, and they've been here for almost since the beginning. And so some of this just takes time relationally to build trust, for them to build ownership. So I don't think, if you're like the first 6 months in and you don't have everybody inviting somebody, some of this stuff, no matter how amazing the church is, people just take time to build relationships, build trust, be more bought into their local church.
Yeah, so. And one thing I'll add, and maybe we can do an episode on something like this, how to invite people. But just talking about inviting people from stage and how you should invite people, I don't think is really going to work. Of just talking about you need to be inviting people. So we started this Just One campaign, and we've seen a lot of people talking about it, and it gaining a lot of traction of people talking about it, because we actually talk about the reason behind why we're inviting that one person and going into detail of what the impact that can be made and how someone could be praying for that one person that you're going to invite and things like that. And I think people are much more receptive and then in turn inviting people because they kind of see the vision behind it, not just the same thing I've heard ever since I was a little kid of invite your neighbor to church kind of thing, you know?
Yeah, totally. Yeah, so number 4, people inviting their friends, if they're not doing it or if they are doing it, can help show the health of your church.
Yep.
Number 5, social media engagement with your church. What I mean is if you're on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter is kind of a dying thing, at least for churches, in my opinion. But we still do it, but people don't really engage.
Yeah.
But for Facebook and Instagram in particular, are people commenting or sharing or liking? Of course, not everybody's on the social media stuff. Not everybody's super engaged. But that will show if you have people that are actually really excited about it or not.
Yeah.
And so we have a few people that comment and share everything or comment and share every once in a while. And that shows that people are excited about what's going on. Also, you have to do some worthwhile content, which we talk about in various episodes.
Yeah.
But if people are engaging with your stuff online, it likely means that they're excited about what they're doing. They're probably serving, giving. They might be inviting their people. But do your people engage with anything that you post is a good barometer. Again, it's a little tough because if you're posting bad stuff and boring stuff, which we're going to be talking about, I think 2 episodes after this or somewhere around this, we're going to be talking about tips for better social media use.
Look into the future.
I don't know what episode number it is, but tips for better social media use.
Yeah.
If you're doing bad content, that's part of it. But are people engaging with it will show you whether or not they're really bought into what's going on.
Yeah, I think you can really tell if someone is, well, I guess you can do this on Instagram, but on Facebook, if they're sharing it, like I know everyone, like you said, you always have people that kind of share everything, but every so often we'll see someone that like has never really engaged share something. It's like, it's like, what in the world? I was never expecting that person to do something with it. Or like on Instagram, if they have a story from Sunday morning that like tags the church, something like that, where it's not just like a click like and move along because they see it's the church, which I mean,
better than
likes
nothing,
matter too. So that's not nothing. But I think those kind of one-off things you can really tell if people are really getting more engaged with the church.
Yeah. So again, it's a great sign of health. Are people engaging with your content on social media? Will show whether or not they're actually engaged in some degree with the church.
Yep.
And then lastly, the percentage of people who serve. So maybe unlike groups, maybe you do groups a lot. Maybe you're still trying to figure it out. Everybody needs people who serve.
Yes.
Volunteers. We call them people who serve here at New City. How many people are doing that? And is it just the same people every single week? Now, again, not to discourage you, if you are a brand new church plant, it'll take a little bit of time. But also, if people are excited, you want to get them assimilated. I think sometimes we're wary of like giving people, or we kind of apologize for it. Like we talk about giving, like we have to like give all these caveats.
Yeah.
Like the reality is it's good for your people to serve, and it's great for them to get connected and build relationships with people. So you should present this as an exciting thing and not feel bad about it. But do you have people serving? Do you have new people serving? Or is it just the same exact people every single week?
Yeah, that's good. I mean, I don't have a whole lot to add to it. One, just kind of combine a couple of them. I think one way you can really tell is if you see people talking to other people about serving that aren't the person in charge.
Right.
If you see people that are serving that are enjoying doing it because they're doing something with whether it's because they're enjoying doing something with people that they like or their friends, or they see the impact that's being made or something. If they're talking to someone who's newer about, hey, you should serve on the team I'm serving, or you'd be really good holding the door or whatever, I think that's a really good sign that there's something good going on.
Yeah. So you want to see more people serving, and even if your church, maybe you're brand new, maybe you've been around for a while, and you're not necessarily growing in terms of new people, you should hopefully at least still be growing in terms of people who serve, because as people are, none of us want people just to like come and leave and never take steps. What we have found at New City is that's often people's first step. If they serve, the chances of them getting in a group and giving and being involved is significantly higher. Like that is the biggest indicator of whether they're not going to take future steps, as if they serve.
Yep.
And so you want to have a good percentage of people who serve. I would just do the math, see how many people you serve, and see if you can kind of increase it, do some things to talk more about serving, get people more involved. It'll help your church.
Yeah, and one thing to add just with all these is if you're looking at these and kind of thinking these aren't growing in my area, or what's the reason, think about how often you're talking about it. I think is a good place to start. If you're not talking about giving or serving or inviting or I mean, we talked about on that episode, if you're not talking about people engaging with your social media and talking about it out loud, you can't really fault other people for these things not happening. So I think the first step is to make sure you're actually communicating that these things are important.
Yep. So that's it. 6 signs for health in your church. People increasing their generosity, percentage of people in groups, the attitude and involvement of your church staff, people inviting their friends, social media engagement, and the percentage of people who serve. So thanks for being with us. If you haven't already, make sure you join the Facebook Practical Church Planting group. So you can have conversations, ask questions, and we'll be with you next time on the Practical Church Planting Podcast. Thanks so much for watching this episode of Practical Church Planting. Whether you're watching on Facebook or YouTube or Practical Planting, wherever you are, whatever you're doing, make sure you like or subscribe or do whatever it's telling you to do or should do on that platform.
And hey, if you are so tired of looking at our ugly faces, but you're not tired of listening to our beautiful voices, then you can find our podcast. If you just search Practical Church Planning on iTunes or Google Play, make sure not to just find it, not just to listen, but to subscribe.
Make sure you subscribe. Brian, tell them to subscribe.
Subscribe.
See you next time.